Cool. I mean, we are live. I always forget,
All right.
I haven't told anyone who's actually on the live yet. So, just kind of give
Okay.
a bit of a
Surprise.
teaser. So, yeah.
Right. The devil.
Always got to wait for a few people to connect. So, yeah, I always say this, but it's weird these first couple of minutes because you're kind of talking to yourself, but at the same time, people are going to watch the replay from the start. So, sort of waiting for
I
people
know
to
what you
connect,
mean.
but yeah.
Yeah, with the live streams, it can get funky in the beginning.
Yeah.
I usually just dive straight into it because I'm like, just run and just get into it.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm pulling up the stream here for myself because the issue is, as you can probably see there on the right-hand side of the screen, is the comments don't show the people's names. So I've opened up the stream as well. So Roberta says hello. Hello, Roberta. I can see a few people tuning in.
Roberta.
So yeah, today I'm joined by Ben. For those who haven't seen the YouTube video I did or the podcast episode, Ben is someone that does sort of coaching, mentoring stuff with myself. I read Ben's book back in, I think, August time, and then jumped into the coaching program he has and done some more stuff from there. Recently managed to meet Ben in Cancun in Mexico, which was pretty cool. Day of my flight, actually. Yeah. And now I'm back in the UK, and Ben is still in Mexico City, over in Mexico. So, yeah, Daniel says hello, Justin Bieber.
Nice. Good ribbing.
I'm in a bit of a need of a haircut, but I don't really have an excuse either. It's like in the UK,
you got a better beard than Bieber. I haven't seen Bieber rock a beard like you.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is probably, I don't know, probably about 7 weeks of growth. It takes a while, but getting there.
Cool.
Nice. All right. Well, I guess probably a good place to start is where I tend generally to start is, do you want to maybe try and sort of sum up who Ben Slater is in sort of 60 seconds or so?
Sure. Yeah, look, I'm someone that's very interested in business and personal development, reading, studying. I had a mentor step into my life when I was really young. I was about 20 years old, and I was coming off the back of serious mental health problems, heavily medicated for psychosis, addicted to drugs, was dealing drugs, not in a good path, right? So I had this guy step into my life and just completely change the game for me. He introduced me to the concept of empowerment and that I could do something with my life, and he encouraged me. And as a result, for the past 10 years, I've worked every single day to learn and study and try and grow. And that's led me down to the path of many businesses. And essentially I just love to pass the torch to people like yourself, Luke, and obviously people in the community as well. I'm just here to share the things that I was given when, I have a story that I didn't deserve them, right? Because I was doing things that were not very useful to the community. So I want to pay that back. I want to, I see myself, I live on borrowed time, right? Because crazy thing about me is I'd probably be dead if it wasn't for my mentor, Lachlan Cameron. So a lot of my power in life and what I do today comes from this like, oh shit, well, if I was there, I'd be dead. So I may as well do something useful, right? I may as well share this with as many people as possible. And that's where I get my fire from, and that's why I do what I do. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, look, for those of you who are watching on that note, I think, look, if you want to sit back and enjoy and listen, great. But I think the really key thing for me and a lot of my success too is the questions I ask. So we've got a really good resource tonight. Trust me, people pay good money to get Ben's opinions on things. So make the most of that resource, I would say. Like if you have questions and curious about different elements in business or personal development in general, probably don't ask Ben anything Amazon related, unless maybe it's to do with the books. I think you've done a bit of print on demand maybe with your book, but I think that's probably as far as the Amazon stuff stretches. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, awesome. All right. Well, cool. Look, if anyone does have any questions, drop those in the chat and we'll work our way through those. Hey, Liam, Habu says I've aged 10 years in the past 3 months. Yeah, I guess the kind of reason is almost to do with girl in Mexico. So the girl in Mexico I've sort of spent some time with, she seems to like the sort of beard and the hair. So like, fine by me. It makes my life easier. I'm pretty lazy. I kind of think I like to think of myself as like a disciplined, lazy person. Like I have to instill these routines and be kind of strict. Otherwise, I just do nothing. Like Sunday was a pretty good example. I had a sort of free day, no business, and pretty much spent it on the couch, watched the sort of Man United soccer game, and that was about it. I mean, I was in quite a lot of pain physically on the first quick game of the season, but yeah, if I don't have stuff to do, then I don't do much of anything at all.
I'm guessing that question is from Chris, by the way. Am I right in that?
I'm not seeing. No, it's
Someone's
not.
asked
it's not.
if I dabble in crypto.
It's not from Chris, and no, I know that you do, but it's someone who doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a guy, Abu, there. I believe it's pronounced Abu, cool. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, he says, as you can see, what's your thoughts on crypto?
I think it's the future. Yeah, I'm very, very, very bullish on crypto. So in the way my business is structured, so we run a 7-figure business. So we do well over $100,000 a month, every single month in revenue. I take the way that I structure my finances, 25% of all business income goes out and gets invested into crypto. So you could say I'm incredibly bullish on that. 10% of the money that I earn from the business goes towards my lifestyle. About 10% goes towards tax. And then the rest is essentially what I run the business from. Now, it's interesting because we can kind of go 2 different ways with this, right? We can talk about the business side and we can talk about the crypto side, but your question's on crypto. So look, I had a few days recently actually where I earned more money from crypto than I did from my business, which is pretty fascinating. And it was like a real big eye-opener for me because I think one of the big mistakes that I used to make is I'd see people talking about crypto. So I only got in about January, around there. I started studying it and I was just like, okay. And I started realizing, all right, this is definitely the future. I didn't understand it beforehand. I just saw a lot of people talking about it, but I wasn't interested. So I just committed to learning, and I've been spending about 2 to 3 hours a day studying it, to be honest, ever since. And I'm incredibly, incredibly bullish on it. I think it's the future, and you want to be putting a small percentage of your earnings into it. The goal that I would set for everyone is get a Bitcoin. Just get one. It is going to be worth a crazy, 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 crazy amount of money. Just try and work towards that if you can. And I think if you can get there, you'll be in the top 1% of people by the end of your lifetime. So, yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned it. I actually did a post in the group today because, as I sort of said in the post, I've been running the Amazon business for about 2.5 years. Now I've also got the personal, or not really personal brand, the iGen entrepreneur brand side of things, where it's more training elements. Yeah, as Liam said there's the answer to the question I asked earlier. So my kind of question I posed to the group was, well, look, I've spoken to sort of financial advisor, this person from a company, well-known company in the UK, St. James's Place. They sort of want 5% of anything you put in and have the sort of management fee on top of that. And I think for me, the sort of difficulty I have is like, well, okay, if I'm going to get value from it, I don't have an issue with paying. But for me, it's kind of, I want something that's fairly liquid. So I have like a business opportunity, I can make the most of that. But I think from there is like, well, what do I kind of invest in? And the difficult thing is like, right, you only have a certain amount of hours in a day and you've got to decide where you want to spend those hours. I recently decided to get a puppy, which has taken up some fair amount of those hours. And then with cricket season coming back in and Gabriella, lady from Mexico, coming, taking up a fair chunk of the time. So it's like, well, where do I spend those hours? So my kind of dilemma with crypto is it's like, and a lot of other things, it's like, is this kind of a shiny object, or is it something I really want to dig into? Based on what you said there, it seems like it's something I do want to dig into. So that's really interesting, and like the timing of that is very interesting, at least for me, because yeah, at the moment it's like I've got quite a lot of cash kind of just sitting there, and it's like, well, what do I do from it? And funny enough, today as a book that you recommended to me, Profit First, which is useful on some concepts you mentioned, I was going back to that and trying to kind of retouch on quite a few of the bits and actually implement it in my personal life as well. Because one thing for me I sort of struggle with is I have this thing with money where I save a lot for like no real reason, and then I kind of feel guilty when I'm spending. And so I'm trying to almost have like these different pots where I've got like my day-to-day disposable income and like a savings sort of thing for like holidays and things like this. And then I have that clarity of at least, okay, I'm saving for like whatever, I don't really know what yet, but I've got that like a backup or a business pot. It's just a psychological thing. And then I've got my sort of disposable things, and I've got that there, and I can kind of split it off there. So yeah, really interesting on the crypto front. And I think Abu had a follow-up question there in terms of, he said, if we all stopped Amazon, what would you advise us to look into investing our time and money in? So I mean, sounds like you touched on one element there, but is there anything else?
Sure. Yeah, look, I think if you're interested in building wealth, you would look at who are the people that have built the greatest wealth throughout history. And here are the sort of people that I run into when I go and study these sort of things. John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. What do all these people have in common? They're innovators and they create businesses actively. So you've got two different areas of wealth, right? You've got active wealth building, which would be for me the study of business, marketing, sales, delivery, and rolling that, and operations, finance, rolling that as a system. And then you've got passive investing. So in everything I do, I try and reach like what you would call the Tao, like the way, right? Like the short sword and the long sword, or the yin and the yang in everything. I've seen this to exist in everything. When it comes to wealth building, I think so many people actually limit themselves because they don't understand the spectrum of it all. You see, I want to master all of it. So what that means is, if you're not in the top 0.01% of understanding and activity of marketing, you're not where you need to be. If you don't understand sales at the top 0.1%, you're not where you need to be. If you don't understand business operations and then finance. So for me, it's not just if you want to build wealth, which I'm guessing is a lot of your questions are based on that. So I'm guessing that's where you want to be. My advice to you, study marketing. Marketing is the biggest growth capacity, in my opinion, or innovation. You could say either marketing or innovation. Great quote for you, actually. Peter Drucker. I said there's only two profit generation capacities. One is marketing, and the second is innovation. Marketing and innovation. They're the only two things in a business that can create profit. Everything else is a cost. That's what he said. So if you want to build wealth, understand those two things, in my opinion.
It's really interesting because so I don't know how much you sort of are familiar with the model. I do, the details, but basically we're taking products from the likes of retail, basically retail stores in general, like at its core, then sending that to like a third-party warehouse to prepare, send it to Amazon, who store and fulfill the orders. And we're not, well, you can, but like up until a point, I never spent a cent on marketing. I was using all existing data. I was using existing Amazon listings. All traffic was already going to the listings. So this is the thing, like when I started doing work with you, I found really interesting is like with online arbitrage, the reason, like you're never going to become a millionaire from it. But the reason why, like if you do it well, you're kind of guaranteed to make money is because the sales kind of element's already done for you. The marketing's kind of already done for you. It's just sort of really that kind of mindset and operations almost elements of it. And I think that's kind of probably why it is capped. But it's a really interesting dynamic with that business model. Not sure where I'm getting with this, but it's just something I found really interesting. Like I think it's the power of Amazon there. And I think that's the thing I found, like you kind of capped with it, and you can go into different elements with Amazon, of course. But that's what I found more difficult but more interesting with the sort of personal brand, well, the iGen entrepreneur brand, and growing that is that it does require the sort of marketing and sales there, and it can obviously allows for exponential growth. So that's what I found pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, look, when it comes to business, I've found that most people, even the highest level entrepreneurs, everything's a stepping stone in the sense that you look at what Elon Musk is doing, right? He's got Tesla and he's got SpaceX. Now, if you were to get real with him and say, okay, what's more important? He'd probably say SpaceX. That would be my guess. Mm-hmm. So, and then if you look at PayPal, then so PayPal turned into Tesla and Space, and then there's this thing, and that's like, okay, this is where we're going. And I found that in my own career as well, as like everything that I did was a stepping stone to set me up for the next thing. And the more and more I've come aware of that, what you want to have is a great cash flow business, right? Great cash flow business so that you can use that cash flow to build assets. And depending on what those assets look like, for me, I'm just fascinated in business, right? So that's where a lot of my mindset goes. Even when I'm investing in crypto, I'm not investing in crypto to hold crypto. I'm investing in crypto to build more capital so that I can invest back into my business when the bear market starts, and I can go and build all these businesses with way more capital, right? It's like I'm self-funding myself. Mm-hmm. And I've got these plans kind of mapped out. It's like, the next thing I want to do personally is I want to build a software business. Reason, it's exponentially more scalable than my current business. My current business has limitations, right? It takes a lot of my time, first and foremost. I can make 7 figures a year, which is awesome. I can take at least $250,000 to $500,000 per year and invest that into crypto, which in the next 5 years will probably be, let's hope 10x's. That'd be awesome. All right. And then I take that and I go, okay, what's my next bet? Like, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So if the question is coming from a place of, what's next, think about generating the cash flow and the proof of concept and then building the next thing, right? And then the next thing. And I've just seen that as really honoring the entrepreneurial spirit. And usually what you want to look at is, how can I make something more scalable? How can I reach a bigger market? Those are the two things that I'm really, really focused on. So how can I add more value, right? Because if I can do something more scalable, reach a bigger market, now I'm achieving my purpose, right? So I'm just like trying to always extend and make the game a little bit bigger.
No, it's really interesting. And I think I had a couple sort of discussion points that I noted down. And I think that almost in part answers one of them. So one of those points I had noted down was basically, what would you say to people who don't know what their sort of passion is, or their mission, or their reason why? And I think part of this is a selfish question. So I think I sort of fit into that boat quite a lot. So I've almost got like that cash flow business, and then I'm sort of building up this brand. And like for me, I've sort of said this, like for me, okay, yes, I want to help people build the Amazon businesses, but it's not an end goal. It's something, it's there to it's a project. It's something that I enjoy. It's not like my end goal to help people build online arbitrage businesses. So it's almost like at the moment I'm just building stuff as like a platform, but I don't really know what for. So it seems like that's kind of what you're sort of saying the way to go is, because I don't know what my sort of passion or mission or whatever it is. I don't have that driving force, but it's almost for me the idea that what I'm enjoying, what I'm doing, and two, that I feel like that's going to come along. So that's my answer to it, is that putting myself in lots of different experiences to try and find that thing. I don't know, would you agree with that? Would you suggest something else?
There's a fascinating concept that comes from a guy called Buckminster Fuller. It's called procession. And it's a concept around purpose. And he uses the bee as an example. So the bee, in its mindset, its whole focus is to grab pollen and make honey, right? It's its noted conscious aim. But what happens though, the bee, it goes and lands on the flower and it sucks in the pollen. Something really fascinating happens. The bee, it gets pollen on its little tentacles, I don't know, little arms that it has, and it starts flying off. Now, we could study the bee and we look at the bee and we see its true purpose. And its true purpose is it's cross-pollinating the earth. Without the bee, we would all be in serious, serious strife. So there's this relationship between conscious aim and unconscious result, kind of like throwing a big rock in the pond. There's ripple effects that come out through time. And Buckminster Fuller said that ripple, this procession, he calls it procession, this procession is always 90 degrees in space away from where you're aiming, which is a really fascinating thing to think about. Fascinating thing. And it's found in physics, it's found in nature, and it's found in human beings. And this is how I get to these stepping stones and how I know what they are. Because I ask myself, what am I really doing? And I know I have my conscious purpose, and I know I'm achieving these things, and I'm building this business, and okay, great, I've got to 7 figures, like, all right, great. Why have I really, like, what's the procession? And what I find is, there it is. That's the software business. That's the next thing, so I can reach more people and add more value. And that's what allows me to just commit even further to this idea. I can send you some more resources on this. I'll attach some stuff. That's deep, but it's really, really, really fascinating to think about. So that's one thing, Luke, to answer your question, on a more metaphysical side of things. But on a more tangible side of things, I would say people's purpose and their conscious purpose that I've found is often very attached to the biggest challenges and the biggest pains that they've gone through in their lives. So the real value that people have to give to the world is often found in the void or in the suffering. And this is a really interesting concept of befriending those moments, right? There's this concept called the hero's journey. I don't know if anyone on the call has heard about this, but the hero's journey is this archetypical circle. And what it looks like is you start out in a normal world and you have an issue with a figure of authority. This is the first starting point. That figure of authority comes into question. And then we start what's called the call to adventure. Now we go on the call to adventure and we cross this barrier from the known world where everything's normal and everything makes perfect sense to the unknown world, the world of the unconscious. Now we travel down, we go through this cycle, and then we reach what's called the void. We have a fight with the dragon. We have something in mythology, right? This would be the fight with Medusa the Gorgon, right? We would have something intense, this challenge. We hit this. Now, usually what happens at that point in this archetypical story, this myth, there is a mentor that steps into the journey around the bottom, and he gives us what's called the elixir, or, he gives us help, aid, and we start moving up. And we start moving up, 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 and we reach this really important point. It's called crossing the chasm, where we cross from the unknown world back into the known world to share our gifts, share our boon. Now, fascinating thing about this hero's journey. Every single myth from ancient cultures from all around the world follows this, it's called the monomyth. They follow this archetypical story of the hero's journey in different ways. So Inuit myths, Australian myths, every single corner of the globe that were unconnected in their cultures was sharing the same monomyth. So we go, okay, there's something there. Now we fast forward to today. Hollywood producers and Hollywood scriptwriters got onto this concept through the work of Joseph Campbell, who was a mythologist. He actually consulted on the script of Star Wars. And George Lucas actually read a book, great book, you want to read this? The Hero with 1,000 Faces, where it goes through and it talks about this. And he reconstructed his script for Star Wars based on it, and he sent it to Joseph Campbell and he said, what do you think? And he said, amazing. He said, you've built the modern mythology. So since then, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, which is pre this, Lord of the Rings, hero's journey. Harry Potter, hero's journey. So let's analyze these quickly. What is the first thing that happens in all of these TV shows, movies? Issues with the figure of authority, right? Like Harry Potter, Voldemort comes in, just tortures the parents. right? Harry's normal world changes. Then he moves from the normal world where he's just a muggle, right, into, oh, you're a wizard. And he goes into the unknown world, right? And he goes down and he goes on this journey. Here is the most fascinating. That might all be fascinating. That's nothing compared to this. The reason why we love these stories so much, the reason why there's this connection, when we sit in that movie theater and we're just enthralled and we just feel this pulse, this spiritual urge to just like consume this content, is because our lives also go through the hero's journey. They match, it matches our spiritual nature. And this is the reason why the greatest storytellers throughout history have been repeating this myth to support us on our journey. When I first discovered this, and even today, it brings tears to my eyes, because I've had so many things happen to me in my life where I go, why me? And to learn that I've been supported during that whole time on this journey that I've been going through. And it has a reason. It has beautiful reason. Because the reason is, once you actually transcend that journey, you bring the boon. And it's called like sharing your gifts with the world. So it's actually, the whole reason the hero's journey exists is to grow in consciousness, is to evolve, right? It's about the first half is about the destruction of the ego. And then the next half is about the exhibition of the ego. So this is the journey that we go through psychologically in our lives, and it's matched with all of these different things. So when I hear people saying, you know, what's my purpose? I would tune in and say, okay, where are you on the journey? Because it comes back to the stepping stone idea. If you know where you are in the hero's journey, then you know what's coming next. And you can actually not only expect what's coming, you can prepare for it. And you can accelerate your life, right? Some people live their whole lives, 80 or 90 or 100 years, in one small slither of the hero's journey. In the sense they get called to adventure after call to adventure after call to adventure, and they never build the power necessary to respond and go on that journey. And therefore, they live like 1/20th of their potential. Whereas my question becomes, how can we speed it up? How can we go on multiple of these hero's journeys? How can we go faster, right? And for me, that's been a big study of my life. Mythology. People would say mythology is not the truth, right? It's a myth. Oh, that's a myth. But when you look into the myth, you find this arcane truth and wisdom. And I've really used that to guide my purpose and guide my life and commit to that.
Oh, that's really, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. I'm trying to sort of remember parts, but yeah, I think hero's journey is really interesting, and I think you touched on it. But my thoughts is like, okay, you sort of talked about identifying where you're at, but I was going to say, well, then is it the case that you can have multiple of these hero's journeys and potentially even simultaneously running on different areas of the life? And then I guess it's almost like, for me, okay, well then how do you then bring this down to your day to day? So whenever I sort of hear things, I try and think about, okay, well, how do I apply that to my life? So for me now, I'm kind of thinking, all right, well, how do I apply this? So I'm thinking in different areas, like what is my sort of hero's journey? I don't know. Like it's difficult because I'm listening and I'm like, wow, yeah, this is really interesting. Then you talked about yourself studying this. So I guess the next question would be, like, for myself and other people, what would you suggest? Like, I think I know probably a book that's relevant to this that you suggested, but say for me, and maybe I know it's because people have different areas, but what would you suggest if I wanted to really apply this in my life, or someone wanted to apply it in their life?
Look, the work of Joseph Campbell is amazing, like really, really, really great. So he comes from the mythology, like the myth angle, and he goes through all of the myths and shows you how all of this stuff is playing out. Great website. It's the Joseph Campbell Foundation. He's unfortunately passed away, but it's got all of his lectures and all of his stuff on there. He's a really true genius, Joseph Campbell. Okay. And he was inspired by Carl Jung. So Carl Jung was a psychiatrist, and he found this stuff in dreams. So he found all of these archetypes and this crazy monomyth playing out in dreams. And then Joseph Campbell found it in myths. So there's a beautiful relationship between myths and dreams, right? And you really want to dive, if it's interesting to you, I would say those two individuals have, in both the areas of psychiatry and the areas of mythology, geniuses, right? And this leads me to an important point. If you want to succeed in business and in life, you want to study human nature. I've had a mentor, his name is Dr. John DeMartini. He's a polymath, right? So our whole schooling system is based on becoming a specialist, right? Is it slowly cutting down, oh, be the leaf of the tree. I want to be the tree. I want to be a polymath in my life. I want to know everything that there is to know about mythology, science, physics, business, psychology, human behavior, all of it. And I commit to that every single day. And as a result, the more I do that, the more I find that I'm becoming more empowered in business, because I'm understanding the deeper layers of wisdom that are there. So really, I think the first thing is become a generalist. You want to be an entrepreneur? Entrepreneurs are the best generalists on the planet. So like, you've got to get away from our schooling hypnosis, become a generalist, number one, and study broadly and widely. I'm not a Christian. I'll tell you what, I read the Bible, 100%. This is a canon text. I've read the Quran. I've read the Bhagavad Gita. I've read all of the key major texts because I want to compare them and go, okay, like, what does this have to teach me? And what I find is I'm no longer controlled by these things. I'm finding the beautiful wisdom that I can take into my life and actually use and empower myself. So I guess that's one thing, because there's not many people out there saying that, right? And I'm just really blessed in that I've met a couple of these people in my life, these polymaths who are just so broad and wide in their study. And I look at their lives and I go, they're just on all fronts. They're healthy, they're wealthy, they're successful, they're like living philosophers. And that inspires me, right? That's what really gets me flowing. Is I don't want to be a business person. I want to master all of the things that I can possibly master. So I don't know if that answers your question, Luke, but yeah.
It's really interesting. And I think the one thing I'm sort of thinking about the audience, thinking about myself, and talk about human nature. And the thing I find is, like, on these kind of things, it's like, oh, awesome, yes, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to read all these books. It's like, great. And then in about an hour's time, myself, someone else on the call might be going, oh, I'm just going to sit on the couch, fancy watching something on Netflix, or we get a text from the mate, hey, fancy coming down to the pub. What would you tell these people in those moments? Because I think this is the thing, a lot of people, I don't know, they have these dreams, or all these wants. And I've read Steve Bartlett's new book recently. Steve's a guy I listen to a lot, and he talks about his secretary who always kept saying how she wanted to go to the gym and kept going on about it every week, and there'll be always an excuse why they couldn't do it or whatever. So I think the question I'm sort of getting at is almost like, well, what would you say to these people, your bit of advice for those who are saying, oh yes, I really want to go down this path, I'm really relating to it, but then they're still finding themselves hitting that snooze button when they wake up, sitting in front of Netflix, kind of doing bits and bobs, but never really seeing that progress that they want to sort of see there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I have an analogy. It's like a little anecdote. So I want everyone on the call to imagine that we've moved to a house. Now this house there's land just all around this house. It's like essentially in the middle of nowhere, but it's a very beautiful spot. So mountains all around. Now, every day when you wake up, there are only two actions that you can take. You can walk outside and you can plant a tree and you can nurture that tree, or you can eat the fruit that the tree would bear. Two actions: plant trees and eat fruit. What do you do every day? Now, for a lot of people on this call, I imagine there's going to be a propensity towards planting trees. That's probably why you're here, right? And I'm very much the same. You know, I've had some crazy shit happen to me in my life, right? Some hectic stuff, and that's led me to be a person that's I swing very heavily to the planting trees, to my own detriment. And I started my first business when I was about 20 years old, coming off the back of a lot of suffering. And for the next 5 years, I got up every single day and I just planted trees. Plant. And as you can imagine, I'm just getting to work every day, plant. And the funny thing was, every day I had to reach the border of where I was planting trees, and I just had to keep planting them out and out and out and out. And I reached this point, and I turned around, and I had all this fruit, and I was like, fuck, I got no one to eat the fruit with. And I realized that I fell into like a bit of a depression. I left my country. I shut down one of my businesses. I went soul searching because I was just so like, what's going on? And I realized that I hadn't nurtured myself, that I was just focused on this crazy pursuit of success. And I'd let my health slip. I'd let my social slip. And I wasn't really showing up for my family. And here, I guess to like deepen this a little bit, I've found that there's 7 areas of life. I found that there's health, social, and family, which for me are the fruit, eating the fruit of life. Time spent working on your health, time spent with friends, and time spent with your family or growing and those sort of things. For me, that's where I get all of the nurturing and energetically gaining stuff, right? And then there's the other stuff. We go to the other side, the planting trees areas, finance, career, and intellect. And then we've also got intimacy as well as the 7th piece. So you'd imagine that there's these areas inside of us, the yin and the yang. The yin, health, social, family. The yang is finance, career, intellect. That's about pushing values out tomorrow and growing. And the other one's about experiencing the values today and sitting into it. Now, for people that have a conflict between those two areas, those questions are going to arise. You're going to feel guilt when you're doing one or the other because you're comparing them. But really, both are equally as important as each other. And if you want to have a long and successful entrepreneurial career, my advice would be, instead of doing it on a 5-year cycle where you spend the next 5 years just planting trees, and then turning around and realizing, shit, there's no one here to eat the fruit with me, and then having to go away on a holiday for 12 months and sitting on the beach and depolarizing yourself the other way. My question is this: what if every single day on the daily level, you got up and you planted some trees and then you clocked off and you're like, all right, now I'm going to go and eat the fruit. And you would actually focus on all 7 areas of life every day. Not, okay, in 6 months, when I have finance, then I'm going to buy myself that thing I want, or when I have this, then I'm going to be healthy. What if you did it every day? That's been my commitment that I make to myself. And I have to check myself hard because I have a propensity to just plant trees all the time. Like that's my natural state. I got to pull myself back. And sometimes I watch Netflix. That's excellent. That's great. Now, there's so many people out there in the business space that go, you can't watch Netflix, you can't do this, you can't drink, you can't. Bullshit. They're fucking miserable. I'll tell you what, there are miserable people because they're just build. But you have to nurture yourself as well. And that's really my key message, is that there's these two sides, the yin and the yang. And if you want to go far, I've found that if you honor these two sides, the plant the trees, the eat fruit, you'll enjoy yourself a lot more. You probably produce a lot more. You leverage your career a lot more. You have a lot more fun doing it. So when I hear things like, I can't, it's a comparison, right? Like, I can't read or I can't do this. Do all of it is really my perspective when it comes to this.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think that's almost the thing. And I think people sort of know deep down. It's like that short term, you almost have that sort of different personalities. You have like the person who's like, oh yeah, in the future, I'm going to do this. And you kind of know what's best for your future self. But then in the present, it's kind of that when it comes to actually doing something and you have those temptations there. And it's almost having that ability to consciously choose those things, I think is what you sort of talked about. For example, with myself in Mexico, it's like you choose to go and do something as opposed to like feeling guilty because you know there's something in your business that's important to do, but you put that off at the cost of binging on a Netflix episode. I think there's a very big difference there in terms of making that conscious decision to choose to watch a Netflix episode when you've done what you've done, as opposed to feeling guilty about doing that. And I think, look, if people have an issue with planting too many trees, I'd recommend getting a puppy. My puppy feels like he's almost eating the seeds as I'm trying to go and plant them. So that's a good way to find some balance there. But it's true though. Like that's generally part of the reason I went for it. I knew the puppy was going to have impacts on all sorts of different areas, but it's one of those where it's just something that I thought is going to help sort of bring that balance. So it'll be interesting to see over the years. But yeah, totally. I think it's really interesting what you said there, and it's I think for me, sort of, if I can add to that, the one thing I've found useful is to try and find someone who's on a similar wavelength to you, and use that person to keep each other accountable. Because like when you establish these things and that are, help you, for me, systems really help, like building in systems into my life to make sure I'm doing these things. And at the moment, the one thing I've found is having almost like a daily and a weekly checklist. So I had like a check-in at like the end of the day, which I saw from your book, actually. It was like a sort of a form that I get reminders of. But I thought, well, sometimes I get into the end of the day and I'm forgetting about these things because I'm so busy just getting into like work. So when I actually have now, like I'm putting together like a checklist, so I can have a visual cue. Like I've got like a motivation sort of board with like memories and stuff, and that I can actually have a visual cue where it's like eat 5 bits of fruit and veg kind of thing, like that kind of crap. And then also I'm doing like shoulder exercises as part of my sort of physio. It's like these kind of things where I can kind of check them off through the day. So by the end of the day, I feel like I've got that balance in different areas of life. And then I can have that freedom to then do kind of whatever I want. And I know that I've checked what I want to do during the day. So that would be my thoughts. I don't know what you think about that, but that's what I've found and what's sort of at least helping me in those different sort of, to add on to what you've said there.
Yeah, well, someone just asked a similar question that's popped up here, is that if you're struggling to eat the fruit, what techniques do you use to implant that? Well, for me, it's like priorities, right? Because, I think of my day and I judge my day not by the result of the day, but do I finish my day with more energy than when I started it? So for me, I use a traffic light system actually in my calendar. So I've got greens, which are energy gainers. I've got oranges, which are energy neutrals. And then I've got reds, which are energy drainers, essentially. And what I try and do is I buffer my day with energy gainers. So I start my day with a green and I finish my day with a green. Now, I don't maintain this system 100%. This is like the idealistic system. But what I find is when I do that, every week I'm showing up with more and more energy and I've got more and more momentum. So, and this helps me to build a bigger business, right? It helps me to stay on path. It helps me to lead my team. It helps me to be a better brother. It helps me to be a better son, a better boyfriend, like all of these things. So really thinking about, like, okay, what's the cost of not doing it, right? And understanding what those green activities for you are. I can't see your name there in the question, but creating a list of those greens. And there you're nurturing yin activities, right? Prioritize them, flip the script, put those first in your day, put them last, and then do the planting trees work in the beginning. Run that for 90 days and just see what results can come off the back of it. I've only seen massive growth come off the back of it, and fulfillment and enjoyment, as opposed to the opposite, which is burnout and, suffering and just questions, too many questions with not enough answers.
Yeah, for sure. And I haven't actually gotten around to reading it yet, but I know something you linked, which is The Entrepreneur's Guide to Time Management. And I think it goes over some of similar bits, maybe. I haven't read it, but I know Dan also talks about similar concepts in some of his other stuff. So that might help as well there. That was Tez that asked that. One thing I wanted to touch on is Liam there commented. He said, "So refreshing to hear, guys. sort of, he said there's far too many sort of typical successful entrepreneurs that look down almost on people living their lives. I think the thing I wanted to sort of add on there is, and Steve Bartlett talks about this a lot, and he mentioned in his book, is social media and just in general the image people portray. And I'll give you an analogy. Like when I was with Gabriella in Mexico, you sort of, the girl, you get them to take about 20 photos for them, and almost like a similar pose, and they pick the best one and they put it on social media. Now, this isn't what they're looking like all day, every day, and it's the cream of the crop. So it's like, I think Steve Bartlett quotes it as like social media is people's highlights reel. It's not like the day-to-day of life. And you get people making their comparison to like the Kylie Jenners of the world or the Gary V's of the world. And I think that can be very demoralizing and damaging. You see people talking about how much money they made from crypto or how much money they made on their latest new product or venture. They're not going to generally say like, oh yeah, today I lost 5K from this kind of thing. Some people sort of do, but not often. So I think that's something at least that I've tried to really be conscious of. And when I see people sharing their success, is to try and sort of almost stay in my lane and be like, I know I'm putting the work in, I'm doing what I'm doing, and it's like enjoying that journey. And I think that's why a lot of the time I actually try and, to be honest, like avoid social media to an extent, because it's human nature to make these comparisons. I think you can probably try and sort of be conscious of doing it, but I think you can always do it. And the one sort of thing just to add on to that, the one thing I try and consciously do in comparison is to compare where I'm at with where I have been, because you can compare to other people, but you can also compare to where you want to go. And I think Dan Kennedy again talks about this idea of always walking towards the horizon, but it's impossible to actually get there. That's almost like having those sort of end goals. And if you're always comparing to that, it's going to be demoralizing because you still feel like you're always far away from it. And I think as well, people hit goals that are like, oh yeah, I want to do £1,000 a month. Oh, great. Now I'm going to do £2,000 a month. Now I'm going to do 5,000. You keep stretching these goals, and never going to be satisfied until you actually reflect back on where you've been. All right, we just lost Ben there, so I don't know what's happened, but see if he can reconnect. There we go. All right. Yeah, there you go, back in the stream. So yeah, just lost you for a second.
I got kicked out there. I don't know what happened, but I'm back.
I don't know. Yeah, so I was just kind of saying that kind of finished just sort of on that comparison front. I don't know if you've got anything to add, sort of maybe in terms of social media and I don't know, just in terms of comparison. I was going off on a bit of a waffle there, as I like to do.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one with the social media. As I've grown in my life, I've become aware that being here, running a 7-figure or a multi-7-figure business is not better than running a $10,000 business. Having 10 million social media followers is not better than having 0. The benefits and drawbacks are conserved. And you want to delete or destroy, I think not delete, but you want to destroy the idea that I'm going to get better. It's a myth. I shouldn't say myth, because I was building up myths before. I just used it in the opposite frame. But this is a painful thing. This is a painful thing. But the reality of growth is there is a cost. I love this quote. It's one of the most guiding quotes. I found it in the Red Book by Carl Jung. He put himself into a self-induced psychosis, and he just drew. He's a beautiful artist as well. Beautiful book if you can find it. And he just drew these crazy visions that he was inducing, and then he was like writing in almost like scripts and stuff. And he's just you pull through it, and he's got this really beautiful wisdom there. One thing he says is, there's a sacrificial blood that binds the poles. Sacrificial blood that binds the poles. If you're looking to go from 0 to 100, there is a sacrificial blood that binds those poles. And the thing with social media is we're always looking at, oh, okay, yes, everything, what's great, but you don't see the chaos behind the scenes. Chaos and order are conserved. They are universal particles. They're like the proton and the electron. They're inseparable, right? They're always, you've got the atom and then the nucleus, and you've got the electron floating around it, right? You could think of the electron as the chaos element. It's just like going around a million miles an hour, and the nucleus as the stable element. Now, with social media, like you say, everyone's always posting, oh, this is my stable nucleus, right? But the chaos that you find, this is a crazy thing, crazy thought. The biggest months that I've ever had in my business, the 2 biggest months, have also been some of the worst months of my life. Because I had crazy, chaotic stuff happening. One time I left the business and I got in literally a physical altercation with my brother and best friend at that time, which was horrible. I went through a relationship breakup that same week. It was really, really painful. Second time, I got sued when I didn't think I believed to get sued, but I got sued for an incredibly large amount of money that I was like, wow, okay. So there's this myth that, these people have amazing lives and we compare ourselves to them and we minimize ourselves. But the reality is these benefits and drawbacks can serve. Now, you might say, well, how do you grow when you have that sort of mindset? It's about accepting the challenge of chaos and order. If you want to produce order, right, which is hit my goal, this is the level of order I want to produce. Ask yourself, what level of chaos are you prepared to face? Because mostly the reason why the goal isn't achieved and owned and there is because the level of chaos is either unconscious, is you're not prepared for it. So if you prepare for it and you look at, okay, what's going on here? And also, with these social media influencers, start thinking about the chaos in their lives, right? Don't think that they're riding unicorns and the sun shines out their orifice. Like, this is life, right? This is life. And you don't want to drop into the idea that you can have a yin without a yang. You can have a chaos, you can have an order without chaos. Like, that's the reality, and you accept that, and it helps you to build more empowerment.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I was going to say something, but I forgot what I was going to say there. But yeah, I think what was I going to say? No, it's really interesting, and I think for me, a lot of it, yeah, that's what I was going to sort of say. Like, something I've been seeing cropping up, and I did a post sort of about this sort of concept was, okay, comparing to other people, but as you sort of put there, also people feeling like, and I know I'm guilty of this a lot, feeling like when I get something, then I'll be happy. It's like this thing, oh, I just need this thing, or to get this thing, or whatever, and then I'm gonna, everything's gonna be cool and that. And it's almost, I think, linked to before, I think you're talking about Carl Jung and on those sort of areas there, and I think it was Neumann. I managed to read a few pages, I think, of Origins of History before I sort of gave up and flicked to YouTube, which I got some stuff from. But the concept there of kind of that, actually the calm and the order, and I think they've sort of referred to as like the Great Mother, is that you kind of got to be able to escape from that. I think if you don't kind of actually embrace these challenges and sort of the suffering or whatever, then life can become pretty sort of boring and flat, really. So I think for me, the one thing at least I'm taking away from all this and I'm trying to reflect on is that realizing, as you said, there's always going to be problems and always going to be challenges, and trying to accept that right now I've got to be happy with where I'm at, because it's not like, oh, I'm just going to go and get this house or get this car or marry this girl or get a puppy and everything's going to be great, like that's at least what I've found there. So I don't know if you sort of think the same, or if there's anything you want to add there.
Well, yeah, can I share a quote from Carl Jung? I was just running through it in my head. I think I've got it. It's quite a long one, but he said, there's no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious.
That's
what he's talking about.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about. You don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light. And, this is the thing with social media. any even resentment held towards them is imaginary, because you're imagining figures of light by looking at them and going, oh my God, their life's so amazing, their life's so great. But the reality is they're in the position that they're in is because they faced something that's incredibly dark in their life and they found a way to overcome it.
Mm.
And that's where you find your power too. And everyone on the call, that's where you find your power, right? Because, and this is to talk more about the purpose that we were stating in the very, very beginning. This is how you find your purpose, by studying your darkness and looking at what are the most painful. I'll never forget this moment in my life, and I'll share it with everyone on the call here. And I shared it in the YouTube, but I think the most powerful moment in my whole life, a mentor of mine said to me, Ben, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you? And I said, oh, look, I had this specific psychotic episode where it was bad, like bad, went for hours, just kind of like died, lost everything that was important to me, was just, all the fear in my whole life was condensed into that one moment. Like I've never felt anything like that before. It was incredibly, incredibly painful. So I tell him the story. And he, in the way that he doesn't emotionally respond, but he goes, okay, how is that of benefit to you? Now, up until that point, every single person that I was communicating these sort of things with was like, oh, okay, yeah, what was Ben? And he flipped the script on me. He goes, yeah, great. How's that benefit? And funniest thing was, within 2 minutes of me thinking about that question, I had tears rolling down my face, and I was just going benefit after benefit after benefit after benefit after benefit after benefit. And he goes, tell me about the thing. And I go, my thing was the best thing that ever happened to me. And he goes, interesting that. Most powerful moment of my life, the power of one question to change a person's life, right? Because I was in this woe is me state, and he helped me to face my darkness. And in that darkness, in that pit, that void, that thing that I was so afraid of, that deep cavern, there was gold. And no one was encouraging me to look in it, right? I was sitting across the table from psychiatrists that were saying, Ben, just take this medication, everything's going to be okay. You're going to have to be medicated for the rest of your life. After that conversation with Lachlan, I grabbed the medication, I threw it in the bin, and I never took it again. So the power of that individual, he helped me to heal. And that was true healing, because I could actually go in, and to take this back to Carl Jung's quote, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, right? So that's where I would say, whenever I feel out of momentum, whenever I feel depressed, sad, lonely, I go back to that moment and I think about that moment. And it gives me just this burning desire. There's nothing like it. There's overwhelming gratitude for this person that passed the torch to me. And so hopefully that helps some of the people on the call. And if you have moments like that in your life, or if you have things that you're trying to avoid, I would really encourage you to just try and enter into those and look at the benefits of the perceived drawbacks. But to flip this, don't look at the social media people and be like, oh, they're amazing, they're great. Also look at the other side, right? Look at the drawbacks, and you'll find that you live a more empowered and meaningful life.
I really appreciate you sharing that. And I don't know, I always feel interested in saying this, and I always forget what this guy's name is, but the guy Chris had on one of his group coaching sessions and talked about this idea of sort of becoming a man, and like this idea of really you've got to go through some sort of hardship, some sort of struggle, so you come out the other end, and you have that there. And I kind of said this to him, and it's so interesting to get your sort of thoughts, but it's kind of, for me, like I try and look at those areas of sort of darkness, and to me there's nothing that's like hugely apparent. So I don't know if it's maybe a case of, like, my thoughts there, I'm like, well, okay, how can I implement this in my life? And it's like, okay, maybe there's people I can speak to who can pull these things from me, but potential to like journaling, like, okay, what are these areas? What can I pull from them? So I guess my sort of question is, if anyone is sort of maybe in a similar boat or just in general, like, how do you sort of look into those areas of darkness and make them conscious? Like, what is that to you? Is that a case of speaking to people who are going to ask those questions? Is it a case of journaling? Maybe a bit of both? At least those are my thoughts.
Look, it's an inner path. There's many tools, right? There's many tools when it comes to this sort of stuff. Look, there's a wide spectrum. You know, everything from diet to exercise to psychedelics on the other side of the spectrum, right? From the most tangible and physical to the look. My advice is to these sort of things of like growth and those sort of things is like, go to what you're called to, right? And like there's a great saying, like, when the student is ready, the mentor will appear. I found that to be true in my life many times, because I actually go back to it with Lachlan Cameron before that moment happened. I remember I had this moment where I was like in breakdown mode, and I asked for help, not to anyone else, like not out here, like in here. And in comes this guy, just like walking through. You know, he was my first major mentor that I met. And then the second time I met my second mentor, his name's Dr. John DeMartini. I was going through a relationship breakup, and I was sitting on the couch. I'll never forget this. And the girl who I was dating, her name was Abby at the time, she looked at me and she goes, "What do you want?" And I said, "I just want a mentor who can help me get through this." And I had this intuition, this feeling. I walk over to my bookshelf. I stand there. I've got, you know, a couple of thousand books at home. And I stand there and I feel called to this one book. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick it up. And I just start reading. It was The Breakthrough Experience by Dr. John DeMartini. So I read the book. And here he was just this powerful fucking guy. It was just showing up and guiding me through and helping me. And I get to the end of the book. And this was Thursday night. I finished the book and literally I just started from cover to cover, finished it. Finished the book and he goes, "Oh, by the way, I run seminars all around the world. I might be in a city near you soon. So here's my website." So I go, okay. Log on to the website, and he is in Australia. He's in Australia every 6 months. He was in Australia that weekend. And I go, well, if that's not a slap in the face from the universe, then I don't know what is. I booked a flight down to Melbourne. I went to the seminar, and that man took me further than I could ever imagine with my personal development. And the thing that I asked for in that moment, the intention that I set, which was honest and clear, helped me through one of the darkest moments in my life. So I think to like come back to this, you know, hero's journey and a lot of the things that we've been talking about, ask for help. Like that's the thing. Like every moment where I've experienced these huge geometric levels of growth in my life, the mentor is present and it's there, and he's helping me through, or she's helping me through in whichever way. But if I actually get real with myself, that's the game that I asked to play. And this leads us to some really beautiful questions about what is the nature of reality and how are we connected to other people, right? Like how does that happen? How do I have a moment of intuition, walk over to my bookshelf, pick up a book within thousands of books, read the whole thing, finish it, and all of a sudden the guy's I'm standing in front of him 48 hours later. I've come to believe that the universe is intimately connected and that we're connected to the people around us. And it's not a solo journey. Like we're not here to just fight and struggle and toil and succeed and all this stuff. There's something deeper. And I've been blessed to see that in my life. And when I really get honest about like what fires me up, that. Like that's what really, really, really excites me. I trade my whole life for those moments. They're called synchronicities, right? Where things just harmonize and they just like click in to place. They're very, very beautiful. And I would encourage people, like, if the growth and these things are sort of interesting, I think it starts with an intention. As esoteric as that might sound, it starts with a well-placed intention, and typically you'll find someone that can lead you on that journey.
Yeah, I think just to sort of add to that there, what I'd sort of say, as I sort of mentioned to you before this, I think it's a very similar concept to what some stuff you mentioned there, would be that book, Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. It seems like a lot of those concepts are very sort of aligned to what you've said there. And I'll be honest, it's something that's really interested me, because I've always thought like, nah, that's all bullshit. Like if you think of like a car, and then you're going to start spotting them more and more. Like the more I do it, like I'm not sort of all on yet. I'm still not sure, to be honest. Like that's just my thoughts, but it's something I like as I'm sort of opening up to more and more. I'm kind of seeing, and it makes me very interested. So I'm intrigued, and I think that's why like a lot of it for me at the moment is like something I found, and I spoke to this with the guy who I do accountability with. It's like for me, before it was almost like, okay, I want to read, but I'll sort of and learn, but I'll sort of sit down and I kind of didn't really have the sort of pull. Whereas now, like I can kind of sit down and I'm actually more sort of open to sort of reading and learning. So I'm going with that and I'm enjoying it more, and I find it really interesting. I'm trying to sort of see how I can apply it to sort of my life. So yeah, that's just the one thing I wanted to add. But yeah, really, really interesting you mentioned that, and yeah, thank you.
A lot of ways up the mountain, that's for sure. I don't know if there's any one right way, but yeah, it's like with these sort of things, I found interest in like Hermeticism. It's a very ancient philosophy of universal laws. It's very interesting to me. I found interest in yoga. Yoga has been really, really helpful for me personally. I've done ayahuasca a couple of times. That's like a real intense one. But there's a lot of different tools that you can kind of use, and I found a lot of value in these sort of things. And the key thing is it's helped me to heal. It's helped me to show up in a different way. And yeah, I think honoring the intuition is such a key thing, right? Like, and it's hard. It takes courage to cut away from what your friends and family and what other people are saying. Although I'm saying listen to the mentor, I think there's an inner mentor that exists as well. And that's something that you want to tune into too, because, the path that I take, I read a shitload of books and do all this stuff, isn't the path for anyone else on this call. And that's the tricky thing, is you've got to kind of like figure out what's my journey and what's my hero's journey, right? What are the demons that I'm facing? What are the gorgons, or like whatever the things that I'm fighting, what are they? I just found that great support in seeing that we're all on this journey and that we all have these different ways of doing things. But look, I don't think there's any one way. Like that's the thing. It's just like an interesting kind of paradox in a sense. But yeah, it's definitely a useful journey either way.
Yeah, and I think that it almost links to what I was sort of saying earlier in terms of those things that you kind of almost know that are going to give you sort of energy, or at least be rewarding. So for example, this, like, I think everyone's kind of, well, if you've got an iPhone, I know you can go into the app and you can look at how many times have you opened your iPhone today. And whenever I do that, it's kind of crazy. Like, it's just a subconscious pull. Like, I'll be working, I'll go for a piss, and it's like I've got to take my phone with me to check messages. It's like, I don't want to do this, but I do it. It's like just this dopamine hit or whatever. And it's, I think it's almost like this, as you sort of talked about the planting trees and seeds, and it's like there's this conscious battle between like what's the best thing to put my time in. But then there's almost like this slippery slope where it's like you put in this effort, and then you'll go and the micro level will be like checking the phone, but then it's like going on a bender on like getting pissed, or you talked about those swings there. So it's really interesting for me, and I think if I put this into a concept, it's like with money, people might they might stress about spending a few quid on like I don't know, something, I don't know, like a nice book or whatever, or going for a meal or something like that. But when they're on a night out, obviously they're a bit drunk, but it's like, oh yeah, it's £10 for a drink. Yeah, give me five of those kind of things. So I don't know, I'm kind of going waffling here, but this is really interesting dynamics, and this is what I'm sort of playing around with, what I'm conscious of, is like these times when I can just sort of almost subconsciously just spend money or time or whatever, and then it's sometimes when I'm having these conscious battles, and it then leads to these discussions about overthinking and these kind of things. But yeah, links to all the stuff we talked about today, and I think links to the question, which I wanted to come back to. I'm not sure how you're doing for time. Have you got some time for another question here?
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. So Tez asked, is there a way you keep balance, periodical reviews and journaling? So I think that's the one thing I wanted to link to, just sort of I say, like, I think for me, there's a lot of stuff that I'm working on and experimenting with, like having morning, daily, weekly, monthly routines in my business, having systems, in personal life, having systems. And I know for yourself, and business is systems for business. So I think you're probably going to maybe say something similar, but that's what I'd sort of say. For me, it's you have these things to allow you to then find those balance, because if you kind of sit down in the day and go, what am I going to do today? I find that doesn't work very well. Maybe that's for me, but that's not a good method for me. So that's why I have these things. So yeah, is it similar for you? Is there some stuff that you do to keep the balance?
Yeah, look, I've been using a system for the past, I think, 9 years now. And it's based on this 7 areas of life concept of, I imagine like 7 octaves on the piano, right? Instead of playing Mary Had a Little Lamb, like getting really good at one octave, moving around there, I want to unlock the 7 octaves and play a beautiful tune. I think life takes its best analogy to music and the piano and these octaves. So when I became aware of this, I thought, okay, well, how can I grow in all these areas? So every single month I have a routine. On the first or the last day of the month, depending on what day it falls on, I will block out some hours time, usually like half a day, and I will sit and I'll ask myself, where am I in these 7 areas? And I'll score myself out of 0 to 10. I'll ask myself questions like, hey, what's going well in my health right now? What's not going well in my health right now? And then at the end, I'll score myself out of 0 to 10, just a subjective metric. Then what I do is I draw a spider plot between those areas. And this is usually quite revealing, because I've usually got this big dent in the sphere that I'm trying to extend in my life. Now, from there, what I do is I set goals. Now, I have a goal setting process called the Polaris Star. Now, highest level is 25 years. I have a 25-year plan for where I'm going in my life. Then I drop down and I have a 3-year vision of what I want to create in the next 3 years. There's quite a gap there. Then I drop down to my yearly goals. Then I drop down to my quarterly. Then I drop down to my monthly. Then I drop down to my weekly. And I drop down to my daily. And I literally, every single day, I set daily objectives that are linked all the way through and all the way up. And I look at every single piece of it. I look at the 25-year plan every day. I look at the 3-year vision. And I go all the way down. Like, what is the highest priority action I can do today to move me towards my weekly goal? When I set my weekly goals, I go, what is the highest priority actions I can take this week to move me towards my monthly goals? All the way up. So I'm constantly connected to the above and the below of the day, to the Polaris Star, of my guiding North Star. And I've been doing that for 9 years. I'll tell you what, that one thing is more valuable than anything that I've ever learned or done in business and about wealth building or health, whatever. That commitment that I started, and it's a game that I play with myself. I don't really share it with anyone else. I've just gamified it. And if I look back on it, within 10 years, I've had some months where I've grown in all 7 areas, but it's not very frequent. I'll tell you what, I think I've had 3 months in my life, literally, in that 10-year span, where every single one of those 7 areas was on the up, was moving forwards. And I'm like, wow, that's fascinating. The rest, it's all balancing, right? It's all moving around. But it's the consciousness and the awareness that I bring to these 7 areas and the commitment that I take to just try and get 0.1% better, like every day. And sometimes I suck, right? Sometimes I just, I don't show up as the right partner. Sometimes I had a couple of staff members leave my business recently, and it was probably my fault. Like there's, I get rid of the idea of perfection, and I just try and commit every day to progress, and I use that guiding star to lead me on the journey. And I'm 10 years into that process, and I'm just really grateful that I committed to that 10 years ago, because I know where it leads me.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot there. Like I sort of started to launch something around similar concepts, but I was sort of calling the Mastermind, and it touched on all those things which I learned from yourself and Traction and other books, and just in general. And I covered really how that process of my sort of spin on it, but very similar. So I think there's a hell of a lot there. I think just doing it and then being consistent with it. So I think for me, it's like, okay, you've talked about those things there, but the biggest thing is actually having that consistency without stretching for perfection. It's like just by doing those bits. I don't know the exact quote, but it's like people overestimate what they can achieve in like a week or a year, but underestimate what they can achieve in like a year or 10 years. It's that massive effect of so often I see, and I'm kind of guilty of it sometimes, like going super hard for a day or a week or trying to fit in everything into this period when it's just about doing those things. And I think that links to what you said there about prioritizing. If you can do one thing a day, that's taking you forward. So it's not really about those maintenance tasks. Yes, okay, you got to do it, but if you can do one thing every day that's taking you forward, like for me today, that was, you can see the book there in the background, linked to the Profit First stuff. I know that stuff's going to help me just not just in my business, but in my personal life as well. It's going to move me forward. So that was my priority for today, to check in on that and update a few things. So yeah, that's what I would sort of say there as well.
Sweet. Yeah, look, it's a daily thing, right? Like and like I said, some days are free days, where I'm just disconnected and not doing anything. That's another thing. And funnily enough, I do more of that today than I did when I was, just first starting the business. And so you go through cycles, and yeah, I guess the key thing here is just to start comparing your growth to yourself, not anyone else. And I think you'll get much further in the long term.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Cool. We got one more here. I think we'll touch on quickly before we sort of finish up. I don't know. Interesting question. I'll see what you think about it. Harminder says, how do you organize your time to ensure you're hitting your goals?
I don't. I'll tell you, I hit probably 20 to 30% of my goals. But that 20 or 30%, I'm quite ambitious. It's a pretty big goal, to be honest. I might need to recheck myself occasionally with the goals, but yeah, look, I find that a good analogy for this is marketing. Right, when I'm marketing, I shoot for a 1,000% return on investment on my advertising spend, which is incredibly unreasonable. Like it's no one shoots for that. But I don't know. I like to challenge myself. I like to be the best I can possibly be. There's a famous quote from Michael Jordan. It's like, X amount of times I was trusted to make the game-winning shot and I missed. It's like over and over and over and over and over in life I've failed, and that's why I'm successful. And I love that. I love that concept, because really everything is a test. Everything in business is a test. Everything you're doing with your health is a test. Every social is a test. Everything is just like you're just testing to see what works for you. And goals are a test, right? It's like, oh, I set this goal. And like a good analogy is the flight path, right, of a plane. When a plane takes off, it has a specific flight path, like from point A to point B. Now, as it takes off, it stays on the flight path for a few meters. Now, from the moment that it lifts off, it spends 0.00001% of its time on the flight path. What it's actually doing, it's going a little bit to the left, a couple 100 meters. Oh yeah, shit, we need to course correct. All right, over here. Okay, now we're a couple meters this side. Okay, they're back over here. And this is the thing, they're just constantly course correcting all the way until they can see the landing. They stick it and they land it. And I think this is a great analogy for goals in the sense that I probably hit 10, 20% of the goals or whatever it is, but they're my flight path. And I'm really, really focused on what that Polaris Star, that 25-year plan is. And that's my touchdown point. And that's really what I'm focused on. It's not even a touchdown point, really. It's just another vector of the journey. Right. And I've found that, like, I also get more, I change my goals. Like, I also get to a certain point and I go, well, that goal was shit and irrelevant. And then I get to a point where I go, oh, there's the new thing. So I've just found that I get really, really comfortable with the idea of failure. And I don't even see it as failure. I see it as feedback. So it's just kind of like I flipped the script on myself. Remember how I said Lachlan Cameron, my mentor, flipped the script by asking a different question? I flipped the script on myself by the way that I relate with my goals, in the sense that they're moving. It's like being a martial artist instead of being a bodybuilder, right? You can get really, really, really good at, this one movement with your arms, and you're going to have a really big bicep. But the bicep's not going to be mobile. It's not going to, help you if you're in a really tight space. Whereas you can be like a martial artist that is like fluid with your motion and super flexible. I'd rather be the martial artist, right? And this is similar with the goals. It's like, be like water. That Bruce Lee quote, be like water. If you're too rigid with the model of the world and too rigid with the goals, it will be a detriment to you to set them, as opposed to if you're open and fluid and flight path, then I found that I have a better chance of doing it. And I seem to enjoy myself a little bit more along the way as well.
No, that's cool. It's really interesting. I don't have too much to do with goal setting apart from, I think, look, if you want, I guess the way it's sort of, as you sort of said, so I have those goals. So like you bring in your goals down, that's sort of how I do it. I have my monthly goals, which is stem from my yearly, which is like stem from the longer term goals, and I bring those down. So I have my then goals on a weekly level and a daily level. And the way I'm sure I'm, I wouldn't say hitting them, but working towards them, is having those things daily, weekly, monthly, because then I'm working towards those things. And as you kind of said there, it's not necessarily about hitting those goals, but it's like working towards the bigger picture. And I can talk for ages about this, but you can have different types of goals as well. Like you can have fixed goals, also progressive goals. You can have goals where you're just taking daily actions, or you can be like results orientated. So lots of different stuff there. But I think, look, in terms of organizing the time, one interesting video I sort of come back to regularly, I'll drop it in the comments there, but a bit of an interesting spin on it I found very interesting. So you might want to check that out there, Hunter, anyone else. But yeah, look, I think all that's been super useful. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add there, Ben. I know I've dropped a link to your site because someone was asking about your book. I know you've got the journal there as well. Is there anything else you'd like to sort of mention to people here that are tuned in or on the replay that might be relevant to them?
Sure. Yeah, the website would be good to check out. There's a few things on there. There's my book. There's a link to the journal, I think, on there as well. So they're like more products that we sell. I am actually doing something next Wednesday, so in 7 days' time. It's a little masterclass. It's essentially who it's for. It's for business owners who are underneath that $10,000 a month. It might be relevant to anyone if you're wanting to start a new business, or if you're wanting to, go into that realm. I'm going to be doing a 3-hour masterclass, essentially sharing business principles and how to set things up in the right way. So if that's of interest to anyone, I believe the link is sfb10kmasterclass.com. So sfb10kmasterclass.com. It's a little bit confusing, but yeah, if you want to join me on that, I think it's $29 to attend. It's going to be 3 hours. I'm going to be going really deep into, obviously today we went into a lot of psychology and mythology, and we hit a lot of different bases, but yeah, I'll go deep into more business systems and that sort of stuff. If you'd love to join me, then yeah, certainly can't hurt in the on the business journey.
Cool. I've managed to find the email. I'll drop the link there to that.
Awesome.
Just want to join it. But yeah, look.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks everyone who dropped in live. I know there's a couple of conflicts on tonight, but I know a few people said they'll make the replay. So yeah, thanks very much for joining me today, Benno. It's been great to have you on. At least I don't know about everyone else, but has always been very useful to me. And I've made some notes there as we sort of gone along. So a few things I want to check out. But yeah, awesome. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it, and thanks for all the questions. And yeah, let's go face our darkness. Go to the cave.
Interesting, out of context for anyone who's just tuned in.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
All right.
No, awesome. No worries, Matty, Tez, Saminda, cheers, or no worries, Steven.
Great.
Cheers, guys. I'll catch you later.
All righty. See ya.